Okay, good morning, a good day. Vav, yep, 6th of. So the 6th of, where are we going? I got my books out of order here. Hayom Yom, the day today, 6th of. Okay. Okay, it begins as follows. The Alter Rebbe on his return from his arrest in Petersburg, which, by the way, is going to be the beginning of our lesson in Tanya also. And the Alter Rebbe was released from prison. This was a big deal. This was according to our tradition or understanding of this release, there was a prosecution on the Alter Rebbe upstairs in the heavens. This is where Kabbalah meets Chassidus, meaning the esoteric had traditionally been understood as something that should remain esoteric and not be part and parcel of daily life of the average Jew. The Alter Rebbe changed that. And according to the tradition that we have, that created a big prosecution up above for which he suffered. But the decree was dispelled on Yutes Kislev. And Hasidus, Baruch Hashem, and all the esoteric teachings became, what's the opposite of esoteric? Introsteric? I don't think so. Became accessible to each and every one of us to use in our daily life. So that's the liberation of the Alter Rebbe from Petersburg. And going back now inside, when he was released from prison, he said a mimer for the Mittler Rebbe, his son, consisting of just a few lines. And the lines are, So'u Yadeichem Kodesh, lift up, I'll just read in English, lift up your hands in holiness, and bless Havaya, the Yud Ke Vav Ke. Hashem bless you from Zion, Hashem, the Yud Ke Vav Ke, who is the maker of heaven and earth. Excuse me. So he explains these pieces of the saying from the Torah. Raise your hands in holiness, right? Refers to the elevation of the emotive traits to the intellect. Hands, right? Right hand, left hand, Hesed Gevura, the heads of chain of the midos, the attributes. Raise those up into the mind so that the midos, one's attributes, one's feelings, become subject to the infusion of the Torah mind. Raise your hands in holiness refers to the elevation of the emotive traits of the intellect and the illumination of the emotive traits by the intellect. And bless Havaya. Bless, we've learned in Maimorim, in many different Maimorim, including the Maimor that we learned on Shabbos from last week's Haftorah. Tzion b'mishpat tepoda, Zion is redeemed with judgment. We've learned that Baruch Ato Hashem, the word Baruch means to bring down, like Berach, like a knee bends, and there are 2 or 3 other ways in which Berach indicates bringing down. So raise up your emotions into the head of holiness, the Torah, and then let the Torah wash down and come down. The letter Yud Ke Vav Ke should come down, eliciting the supernal name. And then God bless you from Zion. Zion, this is again last week's Haftorah, the last parsha in last week's Haftorah, is Zion b'mishpat tepoda, that Zion is redeemed with judgment. Judgment meaning the infusion of Torah. That's how the Alter Rebbe teaches it in that mimer, the infusion of Torah into the midos. That brings a blessing, brings down an illumination to Zion. Now what's Zion? Zion is Zion. But Zion, the word Zion means a marker. If you set up a stone, that's a Zion. What's the marker in a Jewish person? That's the essence of the soul, the Yiddish neshama. So let the flow of godliness come down. Raise up the midos into the head. Let the head come down and wash through into the essence of the soul. And that's all the rolling out of the Yud Ke Vav Ke. The Yud is the Chokhmah, right, the mind. Rolling out into the Hey, Bina, Vav, the six midos, and down into the creation of heaven and earth. And this maintains this, us raising up and eliciting God's coming down, is the maintenance of the entire chain of worlds. That's today's Yom Yom. Pretty pithy. Lessons in Tanya. We are on the second letter in Igeres HaTshuva, in Igeres HaKodesh. The translation begins on page 24 in Lessons in Tanya. Let's open this book. This book is near the top of page Chuf Daled, 104. Chuf Daled. On page 206, the English 206, top of page 206. It says Igeres HaKodesh on the top of the page, and then there's some small letters. It says Archa Biyosei Me Peterburg. Again, this is today's Yom. This is after the Alter Rebbe was released from Petersburg. So he quotes the Chumash in Pashas V'Yishlach, Yaakov Avinu, having come across with just a staff in his hand into the land of Lavan, is now become rich from separating all the sheep in the way that he and Lavan had agreed to. And he says, Ketanti mekol hachasodim, I have become small from all the kindnesses, umekol ha'emes, and from all the truth. He became humbled by God's graciousness to him. And the Alter Rebbe, by the way, is saying, I am humbled, right? He's quoting this, Ketanti. This is Yaakov Avinu, but also this first person is the Alter Rebbe, being grateful, thankful, and humbled by his release from prison, and that the kitrug, the accusation against him, has been released, and he can now go on and do the work for which he was invested by the Baal Shem Tov to do. So he became small from all the kindness, and we call the truth. So this becomes now a general teaching. These are letters to his flock, letters to us, to explain the following. Pirish, meaning, Shebechol chesed v'chesed she'HaKadosh Baruch Hu eisu la'adam. With every act of kindness and with every kindness and act of kindness that Hashem shows his people to a person, the person has to be very humble, lowered, humble. Ki chesed derei yamina, because chesed, as the Zohar says, chesed is the extension of God's anthropomorphic right hand. It says in Shir HaShirim, his right hand embraces me. So one is being embraced with God, by God when one experiences a release, or in any other way, an overt act of kindness that's being done for you. The right hand embraces me. When the right hand embraces you and draws you close to your beloved, so this is actually closeness. Kirvas Elokim, in this case, coming close to godliness, in a greater way, a stronger way than existed beforehand. And he says, "V'kol hakorev el Hashem b'yosef ha'es," and the more closely Hashem takes you into Him, v'hagova l'mayla mayla, and raises you up higher and higher and higher, closer to Him. Sorach liyes yeshval ruach lamata mata. One needs to be more humbled by this. Meshikosov, as is written, it's a pasuk in Yirmiyahu, Mirochach Hashem nirali. From a distance, Hashem appears to me. Meaning, what am I? I mean, from one perspective, we are very great. We have the nefesh elokis. We're so great that Hasages have told us, and this is also in the Maimer we learned on Shabbos, that Hashem consulted with our own souls before our souls became manifest as, souls, entities of souls. They existed in a deeper level of consciousness of God, deeper levels of godliness, and Hashem consulted with us in order to consult with us about how to make the creation. And that's how great we are. On the one hand, how low we are. We're just a speck less than a speck in all of the stuff of creation. Less than a speck. This even planet, the whole planet with all its people on it. As we know, now we even have beautiful physical renditions of how deep and big in the universe is, and how planet Earth is just, and everybody on it even more so, is just a speck in the vastness of creation. So with each act of kindness that Hashem gives to us, we have a certain merit for that, and that merit is being applied now, in a sense, diminished for the fact that it's being used, that God is taking that particular merit and looking at it and bringing us close to us. Ukanaida, and is known back inside. So from far away, that's the pasuk said, from far away, Hashem appears to me, because from this perspective, I'm a gornished, I'm a nothing. Ukanaida is known, that everything in front of Hashem is considered nothing. He is the true yesh, the true something, and everything is an ayin, everything is a gornished, a nothing. Ve'im kain, and if so, he's talking to us. Kol shehu kameh yaser. The more closer you get, the more in front of Hashem you are. It says, Kula kameh, everything in front of him is considered like nothing. So the more in front of him you get, the more you get absorbed into that space of the way God looks at things, which is everything is nothing. So the closer you get to him, hu yeseh kalai, the ayin be'efes, the more you are absolutely nothing. You dissolve into the ayin. V'zu b'chinas yamin, and this is the right hand. Shebekadusha, of holiness. V'chesed la'avram. This is, as I said, chesed, God exposed himself to Hashem with kindness. God to Avram the kindness. Shomer, and that caused, what did that cause Avraham Avinu to say? Anochi ofer v'ofer. Efer, I am dust and ashes. V'zuhi gam kemidoso shel Yaakov, and this is also the midah of Yaakov. And we know two things I'll bring to the table. The Maisa Ava Siman Habanim, the sages say that the deeds of the fathers and the mothers, but our progenitors, are assigned to our children. So what's occurred by Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov is something that we inherit. So Avraham is dust and ashes. He realized how small he is. And Yaakov Avinu becomes, according when he wrestles with God, he becomes Yisrael, and we are Bnei Yisrael. So Yaakov also, this is his midah, Ketanti. He becomes small from the more kindness that's evinced, that's manifest to him from Hashem. And with this, he was saved. With it, he made himself and given over to and grateful for the kindness of Hashem. He was saved from being afraid of Esau, his brother. And he didn't rely just on the fact that God had promised that he would be with him. He relied also on the fact that he has become totally more, well, I didn't say totally, but more and more and more dissolved, given over to Hashem, and made small by the kindness. Because Yaakov was very, very small. You know, it's brought in other places that the name Yaakov can be broken up into Yud Ekev. Yud is Hashem, and Ekev is the heel, the lowest. How do you connect with Hashem? By making yourself small, by making yourself low. Shval ruach, that's the expression we use in the third line. Sorikli shval ruach b'ma'oid. The person has to be very humble, like a foot. B'ma'oid ma'oid, be'enov, in his eyes. Machmas ribe hachasodim. Because of the greatness of the kindnesses of Hashem, the smaller he felt. Ki b'makle, as it says in the Chumash, Yaakov says, b'makle, I came over here just with a staff, and now I have two full camps from the kindness of Hashem. And I don't feel, I'm not fit. It's not me. It's nothing about me. It's on the opposite. That I give myself over to him. That I make myself small, because I am really small. My greatness is that I can perceive how small I am. Yeah, my greatness, the greatness of the godly soul, is that it's bottled to Hashem. There's nothing interfering with it and its relationship with Hashem. There's no negativity, which is pride, ego, etc., etc. And so I'm very grateful. Which our sages have said, Shami Yigona Machet. It could be that something small, which we call achet. Achet was a name for a sin, but it's an inadvertent sin, one that you're not aware that is a sin, or you're not. Classic example: you did something on Shabbos, but you had forgotten that it was Shabbos. It's not deliberate. It could be that something small, could have, and something small. Yaakov is, because of his humility, looks at himself. Perhaps there's something that I did over here. And that's the posture of the Alter Rebbe is advising, not only advising, but saying about himself, right? This whole kitanti, I've become small, even though it's quoted about Yaakov Avinu, is the Alter Rebbe talking about himself and the smallness that he feels, having been blessed with being released from prison, from the imprisonment, incarceration. So that's how Hashem's kindness is meant to be regarded from the perspective of the Jew, the Yiddish neshama. Masha'en Kain, the others, Zela Umazeh, there is an opposite, right? It's a pasuk. Zela Umazeh Asa Elakim. For everything on this side of Kedusha, he has created the opposite on the opposite side of Kedusha, of holiness. So there is a kindness which we're going to call right now kindness of Yishmoel. There's the Chesed Avram, the kindness of Avram. That's the Jewish kindness, which leads to and should bring about humility. And there's the kindness of Yishmoel, which is called Chesed the Klippa, Chesed of the shell, where instead of the open, soft core of godliness, there's a hardness around it. Protecting it, yes, but also blocking the flow of elakus, of godliness. So from that perspective, Chesed Sheyishmoel, Kol Chesed Godel, the greater the kindness is, Hoilef Godel, the Goiva, the Nachas Ruach. That increases the pride and the pleasure of, look what I'm getting. It's amazing, isn't it? How kind God, look at all the stuff I have. And I'm proud of it. Pride. Agasis Ruach. Agasis Ruach literally means thickness of the spirit. And broadness of the heart. And because of this, because there is a klippa, the chesed of klippa, which could lead you to the other side. I come to announce and give forth a very great announcement, a great teaching. It's from the word das, there, da. Leklalas anshe shlemenu, to all of the Lubavitchers, the anshe shlemenu, the men, people of our, they're called literally anshe shlemenu, people of peace or wholeness. That's how the Alter Rebbe, and from then on, the Lubavitch Hasidim are referred to as Anash, anshe shlemenu. So I'm giving you now a big piece of advice. Whenever Hashem does a great kindness to you, and be aware, just the fact that he sustains you in creation and gives you the water, the minimum, the water, the bread and water that you need to stay alive is a great chesed. And the more and more chesed, Asher Higdil Hashem, which Hashem great aggrandizes and makes bigger, that he does with us, that as we get and more kindnesses, reveal kindness to us. I mean, we live in an age where, yes, anti-Semitism is on the rise, so to speak, but we're not beaten, and we're not tortured, and we're not, you know what, we don't have to go there. We have to thank Hashem for the kindnesses, and the more that he does that, the more we should hold on to the midah of Yaakov Avinu. Shar Amoy, the remnant of his people, we're just the remnant of his people, the Sharis Yisrael, and the remnant of the Jew. Shemasim Asmik Shirayim, meaning what? We're remnants, right? We're we're the last generation and the first generation, right? The last generation of Gullus, the first generation of Mashiach, right? But we're the last. We're the end game here. And we don't have any of the capacities that the Chachamim did in their generations, and that the Avos and the Imos and the mothers and the fathers did, Avram and Sarah, etc., etc. So we're called the Sharis Yisrael, the remnants of Yisrael. So he takes us in a positive way. Shemashim asmi k'shirayim. Hold yourself like just a leftover. Hold yourself small. Ketanti. Umoistrais, something leftover, mamish, she'ein boy shum sorach, which is not needed for anything. Be shfal ruach, be low in your eyes. Hold yourself to be not full of yourself. Lebilti reim levavim, not to raise up and puff up your spirit and your hearts, and particularly to raise up yourself in such a way that you separate yourself from your brother and you have an attitude, God forbid, toward your fellow Jew or your fellow human. And don't open a mouth against another person, or to ridicule them. And don't mention anything that could be seen as a strictness or a severity or anything that don't come across that way at all. Come across only with kindness. And do that. What's the key to that? Lahashbil rucham, to lower your spirits, belibam in your heart, b'midos emes liYaakov, and practice the midah of truth, which is Yaakov Avinu's midah. Mipnei kol adam, in front of all people, b'namichas ruach, with loweredness of spirit, and it doesn't mean depression, right? So I'm going to be clear on that. Humility is not depression. Humility is actually the opposite. It's because it opens you. You're not, nothing is blocking. You're humble. You are like something that is left over, that has no yeshus, no pride and pridefulness associated with it. And whoever does anything and says anything to you, don't come back with, what do you mean by that? Who are you to say that? Rak Mainara, with a soft answer. With this is expression. With a soft answer, you should answer anger. Someone comes back, you just answer softly. And with a restrained spirit. And the Alter Rebbe ends this letter by saying, perhaps, and maybe, Yitin Hashem belev achehem. And then when you show softness and kindness and openness and not anger to the one who could have angered you, but you're not, perhaps that will have an influence on the other in the manner of kemayim panim lepanim. The face you show to the water is the face that you get back. Kindness can reflect kindness, and anger will reflect anger. And that's his letter to us today. Be small from all the great kindnesses. Any comments? Any questions? Well, and the Bechein, I think, is the first line. Be humble. For every good. And it doesn't take a big good. The fact that we're all sitting here in enough health and enough comfort to be able to paying attention to this. Katante, we should be small and thank God for that. If there are no comments, question? Yes, somebody. Who is this?
Flo Rivka.
Hi, Rivka.
It really resonates with me. This feeling of being small, but not not a
shmata.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
That's all I've got to say. Humility.
That's good. Yeah, humility, right. It's not being it's not, don't think humility is being a shmata. Good. Anybody else? Yeah, go ahead.
I know this is just a guess, but from the stories that they say about the Alter Rebbe, it seems that he was not a man of unnecessary words.
Unnecessary, words. Yeah, right. Okay. Go ahead.
Right. That's an aspect of humility, but like there are people sometimes that we encounter today who are like that.
Like
and
what? Meaning
that
of
they,
go ahead.
It is an aspect of humility. They are not people of unnecessary words.
Yeah.
For instance, Rabbi Avigdor Miller, who interestingly enough, his Torah foundation was a Chabad Rebbe in Baltimore. Rabbi Avigdor Miller said that he took someone who was new to Yiddishkeit to I don't know which, gadol, and then he asked him afterwards, so what did you notice about this Torah sage? He said he doesn't answer right away.
Right.
So we could say, okay, that's wisdom, but there's a certain humility in it.
Yep.
I think there's a humility in it. I think that even though this Torah sage might be a genius, he looks at the next person and he says, this person is a big person, because that's what we're saying here. So I'm going to hear him out.
Yeah. Yep. Good. Anybody else? Okay, so thank you. Ketanti, let's be largely small.
Yes, thank you.